Hello and welcome to Learning with Law. Today we're going to be talking about writing feedback like a 5 Apple Pro. So if you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I'm always adding new videos every week, and I would love for you to be the first to see my videos. If you find this video to be helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much. In this video, I will address my format that I use in order to write feedback. I will also discuss the format that I use for my trial classes and what to do when you have a difficult student. What do you write in the feedback? And I'll also address what you should write to the learning partners. So let's get started. I write my feedback in under 5 minutes. So I would say it would take me about 2 to 3 minutes per student to write my feedback. If you don't already know, in the materials for the class that you are going to be teaching, they do give suggested feedback templates that you can use when writing your feedback. Seems pretty simple and easy, and I'm going to show you where you can find those. But there's a reason why I don't always use those templates. And honestly, in the very beginning, I was using the templates because I just didn't know what to do as far as feedback. Then I took a feedback writing workshop through the VIPKID portal. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you check that out. That's where I learned a lot of my tips in this video. I'm going to narrow down an hour's worth of information into what you need, or what I think is the most important information from that workshop. So why don't I use those templates? I think either depending on the template, sometimes they're way too general and sometimes they're way too specific. And I don't want to go through every single vocabulary word that the student learned within the lesson, because chances are the parents are already watching the lesson either with you or they are watching the class playback. And in that case, you're just sounding redundant and they might not even read through all of your feedback because they think it'll just be a recap of what was taught in class. I like to create my own feedback because it allows you to stand out as a teacher. I'm going to give you some tips of what I do, and you can use it as your own inspiration to writing feedback. I also use a feedback binder. So I have all of my regular students in this binder. Okay, so for example, I have one student, I have the student's name at the top, their age, and then I have different columns. I have lesson, reward, feedback, and other. So what I like to do, especially with my regulars, is write in which lessons I am teaching them. I can see the progression of the student based on the number of lessons that I've taught with them. It really helps me to figure out what lessons I've taught and maybe where the struggles were for that particular student. So I also put rewards written down, so I'm not being extremely redundant with the student. If I'm using my pick a number reward and I've used it for the past 5 lessons, maybe it's time to change it up a little bit. So if I have that tracked on here, I know exactly what reward I did and I can change it. I also put my feedback column, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit because I do my feedback differently. And then I have an other column, and the other column is where I write the date and time that I taught this particular student, so I can see if they're a regular, okay, they like to book every Monday at 8:30 a.m. and every Friday at 6 p.m. I also like to write, if it's a unit assessment, I like to include the score that the student received on that unit assessment. I really like this too because it shows how long I've been teaching the student and you could see their growth. So if you look in the feedback column, you could see maybe they struggled with learning letters F and G, but by the next lesson or the next 2 lessons, they've improved their alphabet. So that's what I kind of like to see. I like to see their growth. And for me, this is my own type of data. It's not something that every teacher does, but for me, I think it helps me greatly, especially when delivering feedback. So I'm not repeating myself every single time I'm giving feedback. Okay, so let's talk about the format that I use for my feedback. So it's a little bit structured and I have it memorized for myself, and I use a very similar format every time I'm giving feedback, and it allows me to give quick and easy feedback in order to start planning for my classes for the next day. So I give my feedback and then I start my prep for the following day. So what I like to do is start out with addressing the parent or the student. So depending on the level that they're in, if they're a level 1, 2, or 3, generally I like to say, "Dear Mom and Dad." If they're a level 4 or above, sometimes I just address the student, "Dear," whatever the student's name is. Sometimes if the students are younger but they did well on a unit assessment, I'll just address them. Maybe if they're still in a level 1, I'll say "Dear" and the student's name, just so they know that this is personalized to them. And it also changes up your feedback every once in a while, because they keep saying "Dear Mom and Dad, Dear Mom and Dad," and you throw in there like "Dear Johnny," it's going to grab their attention right away. I also then say, "It's nice to meet so and so," whatever the student's name is, if that's the first time that I'm meeting them. Or, "It's really good to see Johnny back in class again." The next thing that I like to include is something that I noticed during the lesson. Now, again, I don't like to recap everything that happened in the lesson, but if there's something that the student did very well, or it's something that the student needs to practice or is struggling with, I like to include those in the "I noticed" section. So something like, "I noticed that Johnny had a difficult time counting numbers 1 through 5. If Johnny would like some more practice, please have him," and whatever my recommendation is. So sometimes I'll say, if he would like more practice, he can review the class playback so he can, I don't know, practice, or he can review, or he can follow along. Other times I like to say, Johnny struggled a little bit with the sentence frame, whatever it is. Please have him practice for 5 minutes, or if he would like practice, he can practice for 5 minutes a day saying whatever the sentence frame was. And then I give a reason why to practice. So if I'm giving a suggestion, I like to say, if Johnny practices, he will improve his reading skills, or if Johnny practices, he will master numbers 1 through 10, or whatever the case may be. So I want to give a suggestion for the student, what they can do to practice if they would like to, and then why they'll be practicing. So that entices them a little bit more. Sometimes for the I noticed some great things in the classroom. I noticed that Johnny really improved his reading. I noticed that Johnny was struggling with the sentence frame, blah, 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 and this lesson, he improved. I noticed that Johnny was practicing reading. I am so proud of him. So having that "I noticed" section is something that will make you stand out, because it's telling the parent you were paying attention during the lesson. You're not just regurgitating, "Oh, we learned these words today, and the sentence frame this." That's great. Like, there's nothing original about that. So that's why I like to include something that I noticed during the lesson. I also like to say, "I'm excited to have class with Johnny again," or "I am looking forward to having more classes with Johnny." And then I'll sign off with my show name. Then sometimes I like to get creative and do a little PS. So this is something that I learned from writing effective feedback workshop through VIPKID. Is if you put a little PS at the bottom, that's going to make you stand out right away. And what I like to do is include something that'll either increase my bookings or entice them to give me that 5 apple feedback. So depending on what I write, sometimes I'll say, "Don't forget to check next week's availability," or "Please tell all VIPKID families that I love teaching children English." Something to that effect. So that's why in my feedback binder, I can see what I said in my feedback. I don't write word for word everything that I wrote in my feedback, but I'll say "struggles with," or like "I noticed," and I'll put what I noticed in the class, either positive or negative, and then what I wrote for my PS. So that's in the format that I have on my binder. My feedback is different every time. So if I had great conversations with the students, I'll say, I really loved our conversation today. Really enjoyed talking about your new puppy, something that ties into the lesson and lets the parents and students know that you were listening and you take an interest in their learning. I also like to make sure I am translating my feedback before I hit that submit button, because sometimes it doesn't translate the way that I want it to. So I'll log into Google and do a quick little translate, and then I'll send off then I'll send out the feedback. But honestly, this takes me under 5 minutes per student. I would say maybe 2 to 3 minutes max. So once you get the hang of it, and I'm a really fast typer too. Okay, trial feedback is a little bit different. So what I like to do is I actually like to use the templates that are given. Oh, and also make sure that your adhesives are working well in class. So I'm going to have to fix that. Okay. Okay, so with the trial feedbacks, this might be the student's first time with VIPKid. So I like to have the parent see exactly what they learned. And generally, the parent will be sitting right there with them. But they can use this as a frame of reference and kind of come back to it and see what the student has learned and what sorts of things they can continue to work on in the future. So I'll use the templates that are within the portal, and I'll tweak them a little bit just to fit my needs. So I will also address the parents and I will say, welcome to VIPKid. It was so great meeting Susie today. And then I will say what we learned. And again, I'm not going to go through every single gritty detail. I'm just going to give a brief overview of what we learned. We learned the body parts, eyes, nose, and mouth. We also learned the words big and small. Johnny was able to identify the vocabulary words in pictures, something like that, in order for the parents to see that they did in fact walk away from this experience learning something. And then I also expressed that I would love for them to be a VIPKid student. And I say something along the lines of, I cannot wait for Johnny to become a VIPKid student so that he and I can have more classes together. So it allows the parents to see that you are interested in teaching Johnny in the future and that they will be a good fit. So that's why I love writing trial feedback. I gush over the student and I make sure that the parents know that I would love to teach them again. Also important to thank the learning partners. This is huge. Also talk about this in my increasing bookings video, which I will attach here in case you want to check that out for ways that will help to increase your bookings, things that maybe you never really thought of. So I always thank my LPs. I know some teachers don't know what to write in that box unless they are writing an issue about a student or a concern that the student might have, but I use this box to always, always, always thank my learning partners. I also add some other information there, which again, you don't have to, it's not required that you write in this box, but I like to add, I would love to have more classes with Johnny. If it's your first time teaching this student, address to the learning partners or tell them that you would love to have more classes with this student. LPs have a say in the booking process. So you want to make sure that they know you are interested in teaching this particular student again. I also, if it's a regular student, I'll say, I love teaching Johnny, or I love being Johnny's teacher, or I love having classes with Johnny. And then I say, thank you so much. If it's a supplemental course, I will say thank you for the referral, because chances are the LPs are handpicking you to teach that particular class. So, and whether they are or not, why not thank them? I feel like they're not getting thanked enough, so just thank them up. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you found it to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And I want to thank my subscribers for being here and for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell so that you'll be notified every time I make a new video. Thank you so much. Happy teaching.